and welcome, or welcome back, as the case may be, to the Atlantean Archive. Today I've got a special treat, an interview with someone that I've always wanted to speak with since I started this channel. I cover so much retro stuff here, things that I grew up with, other Gen Xers and young boomers out there. You who remember 70s and 80s television especially will remember Wesley Eure from Land of the Lost. Wesley, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, when I started this channel with that retro emphasis, Land of the Lost was a big deal to me as a kid, especially. And really got into it, became actually somewhat obsessed with it. And
Wow.
all of the fantasy, the sci-fi elements, in the show really helped kind of propel my interest at an early age in that kind of stuff. And the dinosaurs didn't hurt either. So,
Well, Land of the Lost was at least the first 2 years was written by the Star Trek writers.
right.
David Gerrold, with Trouble with Tribbles, if you're a Trekkie like I am.
Right.
He was head writer. Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov, the original Chekhov, created Enoch, the talking Sleestak. DC Fontana, Larry Niven, Spinrad. I mean, it went on. And then Mike Westmore did all the monsters, and he did the monsters for Star Trek. And I just found out that Leonard Nimoy did the voice of the Zarn in the Land of the Lost movie. So we have a Star Trek connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I don't know too much about the movie, so yeah, that's neat though that it keeps that connection going there. So,
in fact, Kathy, who played Holly, Kathy Coleman, and myself, we're doing 2 Star Trek events that are coming up, and we're the only show other than Star Trek that's allowed at the Star Trek conventions.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a really strong connection there with those writers.
It really is. Walter Koenig, he comes up to our table because Kathy and I do the Star Trek, the big one in Vegas every year at the Rio.
Okay.
And in fact, we just did our 10th year in a row. And Walter will come up. He has a fedora hat. He kind of shuffles now. And he comes up to our table and he goes, damn, Sid and Marty. I should have gotten residuals for Enoch. I should have gotten residuals. So I told, so we were with Sid Krofft the other day, and I said, Sid, Walter said he should have gotten residuals, and he goes, we're too cheap.
Yeah, he created a memorable character, so that's funny though.
He really did. Enoch was, it was amazing. He was almost the Spock of Land of the Lost, and,
right.
But I remember the episode where, Enoch realized that Enoch sees the tall green Sleestak monsters, which scared everybody, is from their past. They've evolved from that. But then he realizes one day that no, they're his future, that he needs to go back and warn his people not to become so warlike. Otherwise, they'll evolve into these monsters. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
That was the writing of David Gerrold and Walter Koenig and Dorothy Fontana and those people. Yeah,
for a kid's show, that had some detailed writing, some deeper themes going on there. And that's one of the intriguing aspects of it. I still find surprising today just how much depth and world building they did with that.
Well, what happened was Star Trek had just finished, and Sid and Marty were on the Paramount lot. They ran into Gene Roddenberry. Sid just told the story. I was with him the other day, and he said, we asked Gene to be our head writer. And he said, I'm too busy, but I got this young writer named David Gerrold. And that's how David got on board. And that's why Land of the Lost wasn't Swiss Family Robinson. It was a sci-fi show.
Right.
And David said that he told the writers, he said, we're not writing a Saturday morning sci-fi show. We're writing a sci-fi show that airs on Saturday morning.
Right.
And that's why they never talk down. They never explain, okay, we're going to talk about doppelgangers or time matrices. Here's what it means, kids. No, just like, this is it. We're going through a time doorway. Here's your doppelganger. Here's whatever. And you had to get on board.
Right. Not explaining it leaves a lot of the mystery in there and, keeps the intrigue going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was, we'd get the scripts, and it's like, whoa, really? It's pretty cool. I mean, with the Pakuni and Chaka and, and the third episode, I think the Sleestaks, the big green monsters came on in the third episode, and the ratings went through the roof. It became NBC's #1 show, not Saturday morning, but #1 show for NBC.
Wow. I was going to ask you if you knew anything about the ratings at the time. Yeah, so that's neat.
Oh, they went through the roof. And Marty said, yeah. And today, Kathy and I will do like some autograph shows, and people will come. And no, Sleestak, I'm still scared of the Sleestak.
Yeah.
They
I like to
scared.
work in Sleestak references sometimes in conversations just to see who will pick up on it, you know? There
Very
was
fun.
something about a lost city that they literally just found like last year or something in the Amazon or one of those deep jungles in South
Yes.
America. And I shared the story on social media and said, this would be intriguing to explore. Just watch out for Sleestak. And, a couple of people got that. So,
It's amazing how many references to Land of the Lost there are in the media. Somebody did a compilation recently, and it keeps growing and growing and growing about all the shows from like Peter Griffin on Family Guy sings the theme song to Land of the Lost for an audition. I was watching Stargate the other day, and there was a character named Chaka, like the monkey Chaka,
oh, yeah.
and they pronounced him Chaka in this thing. Well, it turned out he became a semi-regular character on that, and it was based. The writer that wrote it was a fan of Land of the Lost, and he referenced that because he had a tribe. The guy lived in a tribe and all sorts of stuff. So it's amazing. It just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, I guess so. And I still run into people. It's like, yeah, I remember that show. Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah.
So many intriguing aspects. I remember as a kid, it's the dinosaurs because it was a thing back then. A lot of little boys, especially, were into dinosaurs. And that was one of my things. But then the pylons, the mystery surrounding those, the strange powers associated with it, and all of this, and you're wondering, who created all of this stuff. So yeah, again, a lot of depth for a kid's show.
Well, even Chaka, the Pakuni, the language of the Pakuni was created by Lori. She was a professor, a linguist, I think at UCLA, and she
Right.
wrote a whole Bible. She wrote the whole language. She based it on 8 different languages, and she created her own language. So Phil Paley, who played Chaka, now Phil was only 10 years old, and he was the youngest black belt in karate at the time, and Chuck Norris was his teacher. And
Oh, wow.
he went on the Tonight Show, and Phil's like this tall at the time, this little, with his whites and his black belt. And he goes on with Johnny Carson. He flips Johnny Carson, who's really tall, onto the floor. And Johnny runs into Ed McMahon's arms and goes, "Save me, save me." And that's how Phil got the job on Land of the Lost. Because the Crofts were thinking, from what I understand, were thinking about hiring a little person for Chaka. And they saw Phil Paley go, "We could this could work."
Yeah.
So,
wow.
But the language is so Phil at 10 years old, he wasn't making up gibberish. He had to learn, Sarisa Taka, Wira Ari, Oganza Bisasa, big magic.
Yeah.
The language in some episodes he spoke a lot. So that little kid,
yeah.
really had to work and did a great job.
Wow. Yeah, he definitely did. He came across really well with that. Now, I remember reading about that they had created the language, which was really unusual at the time, too, because, everybody's used today. We have Klingon as an actual language. You got Klingon dictionaries and that sort of thing. I don't know that anything else like that existed at the time.
I don't think it did. I think we set the show set the bar for that. And you're right, with the Klingons and the Ferengi and all the different languages that are now, we go to a Star Trek convention and people are speaking, Klingon.
Oh, yeah. Elvish and all that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. How did you get into Land of the Lost then? How did you get that part?
You know what? It's the Hollywood story. It really is. I was on Days of Our Lives at the same time. I was playing Mike Horton, which I did for about a decade. And a friend of mine, I just got into Hollywood like a year ago before then, and I gotten the job on Days. And he said, "I'm going to a pool party at Sid Krofft's house." I said, "Sid Krofft? You mean?" I didn't really know. It was back in 1972 or something like that. And I go, "Oh yeah, Sid Krofft. Saturday morning and stuff." So we'll go to Sid's house, which is the house he still lives in, and it's like what you would hope Sid Krofft, this magical man, would live in. It's like a Hobbit place with 3 acres up in Los Angeles in a canyon. It's spectacular. So, and we go to this party, and it was just like 5 of us. It wasn't like a giant party. And I met Sid, and we just sat and talked all day. And at the end of the day, he looked at me and goes, "You're perfect for my new show. Here's the number for my casting director. Call her tomorrow, which was Monday, and I want you to come in. And I went in, and they gave me the job.
Nice. Nice.
So,
So you didn't have to audition for it then. He just
I mean,
wanted
I
you
think
to
I
go.
may have read something, but yeah, they gave it to me. And they were both NBC shows. So they
Right.
allowed me to continue to do Days of Our Lives and
Mhm.
Land of the Lost at the same time for 3 years.
Yeah, that worked out. Although it must have been quite a challenge trying to do two TV shows at the same time, I would think.
It was, because Days of Our Lives, I mean, had to memorize your script every day. Well, Land of the Lost had to memorize it every day. So the cast of Days of Our Lives hated me for 3 years. Hated me. I mean, I just come on the show like 6 months earlier, and suddenly I get to film all my scenes in the morning, like the first. So they all had to wait around. If they weren't in the scene with me, they had to wait till I finished, because then then I'd run over to go to General Services Goldwyn Studios in Hollywood. So I'm in Burbank, and I'm crying that my girlfriend's leaving me. The mafia's after me. A wagons fell on my chest and crushed it. And then I run over to the other studio and go, "Run, Holly, run! There's a dinosaur."
Two very different worlds, yeah.
Two very different worlds. Yeah.
What was
I thought one time
production
maybe a
like?
dinosaur broke up with me. I was very upset. No, I got it all confused.
Well, I know Kathy got attached to the dinosaurs anyway on the show, so I don't know
Kathy
how much
Coleman-
Will was attached to them.
Well, she had Dopey, her pet dinosaur.
Yes.
In
I
fact-
just watched that one again the other day. I went back and watched that. That was funny.
She just had a replica, because for close-ups of Dopey, they used a puppet.
Mhm.
And she had a replica made of Dopey's head, so she brings it to the shows now. And Kathy and I are very close friends. I live in Palm Springs, and Kathy's just moved to Palm Springs about 2 years ago, and we travel together. We met at Starbucks yesterday and played our favorite game, Farkle, which is a dice game, and we're very, very close.
Right, and that's great to see, because I know a lot of TV shows you hear about all this drama between the main cast members and everybody trying to push everybody else out of the spotlight and all that kind of thing. It's that rivalry. So that's really good when you see two people who've been together for that long and get along so well.
It's been 50 years. She was 12 when she started. I was early 20s, and Phil Paley, Chaka, Kathy and Phil were friends before Land of the Lost. So they were like when they were 5 and 6 years old, they did a commercial together for Cheetos. And you can see it. You can go Google it. They're both singing in the back of a Volkswagen thing. Their parents are driving. And they're singing, "I like Cheetos. You like Cheetos. More Cheetos, please." And they're singing the song. But they talk. I think Phil and Kathy talk probably maybe once a day. Still, after all these years. We're really close. We just lost Spencer Milligan, who played our dad months ago, and also the guy who played Ron Harper, who played our uncle for the third season. And up until a few months ago, people would come up to us and go, "Hey, so like they go, is everybody still alive?" And I go, "No, everybody's fine. Everybody's good." And now we can't say that anymore.
Yeah, condolences on the loss of Spencer. By the way, I understand he was
huge.
a really kind person from everything that I've ever heard about him.
Yeah, he lived a very private life. He moved up to Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and had a beautiful estate. He had a wonderful life. Directed local theater and stuff like that. Kind of moved away from the Hollywood scene. Had a lovely wife, and we were all very close. We all. I think that one of the reasons Land of the Lost worked so much is that the chemistry was great. Right. Sid says that once they cast me, they gave me the part. I cast Holly. He said, They gave it up to me to cast Holly. So Kathy auditioned 7 times. And then Spencer came in. And of course, the reason Spencer and I look so much alike, he looks like my dad, is because they cast him around me. And we all liked each other. I mean, there was a reason that they let us play together.
Yeah, that's great. I know that really makes a difference. Some of the most memorable shows are like that. Star Trek with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. That dynamic that they had there, Starsky and Hutch. The two co-stars there got along really well in real life too. So that makes a big difference. It comes through on screen.
It does. You watch a movie and you see the two lovers, and you know if they really liked each other or not. I mean, you can tell. You can so. Except I just read an article about Richard Gere and Julia Roberts for Pretty Woman, He said there was no chemistry between the two of them. I just read this article, and I'm thinking that movie is all about chemistry. And boy, it could have fooled me. So,
oh yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's funny. What was production like on a show like that? Because it looks like obviously you're dealing with a pretty low budget at the time. You're improvising a lot with, I'm sure. What was it like? Just memories that you might want to share people would find interesting about what it was like to make a show like that back then.
Every celebrity wanted to come to our set, from Elton John to Stallone to Charo. I'm telling you, it was crazy because we had two sound stages. One sound stage, and sound stages, are huge. They're warehouses, giant warehouses. One was a complete jungle with a lagoon and the exterior of our cave, which we ran up to. And the other sound stage was the interior of our cave and the Sleestak tunnels and caves. And half of the sound stage was all painted in blue floor, blue walls, blue ceiling. And it was our green screen. It was called chroma key blue back then, the technology in the 70s, where that was the technology. And it was amazing. It was like a playground, but the budget was so thin. We shot an episode every 2.5 days. So everything, they did not want us to one take and don't kid around. And, so we shot 2 episodes a week.
Wow.
Which was unheard of. Nobody shoots, a half-hour show in 2.5 days. So all the props had to be made. The animation was done prior to us filming. And so they created all the dinosaurs, the moves and stuff. And then the writers had to write around whatever animation they had.
Right.
So,
did you have any say in your characters? Did they bounce any ideas off of you, or you get to suggest anything to the writers for the show?
Zippo, no. No, I mean, first of all, look at the writers we're talking about, David Gerald, Walter Koenig, Dorothy Fontana. They didn't need any help from me. Their scripts, especially the first 2 seasons, were extraordinary. I mean, Kathy's favorite episode is called Elsewhere, with Dorothy Fontana wrote, where Kathy meets herself in the future, and it's a scar on her hand or her wrist or her hand that the older Holly says, you will understand this one day, and she disappears, and Holly cuts herself and realizes the scar just created. I mean, those kind of stories, they were extraordinary. Now, Days of Our Lives, I had kind of a southern accent. I'm from Louisiana and Mississippi, and so I would sort of go, something darling, or something like that. Well, suddenly they would write into the script, Mike Horton, which I played, I'd go, hey, darling, and stuff. They started writing according to my voice because I was on for so long. But no, Land of the Lost, it was to the letter.
Okay, the Sleestaks were played by, from what I understand, they went out and found basketball players to play these guys. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you're a Detroit Piston fan, there's a man that I'm sure you hate, Bill Laimbeer of the Detroit Pistons, the bad boy of basketball. There's a lot been said about him. And he was a Sleestak. In college, they were all basketball players, because the Sleestak were 7 feet tall in stocking feet, basically. And then they had pointed heads and they had stilts on. So they were almost 9.5 feet in real life.
Right.
So a few years ago, Bill was now coaching the Aces, which is the female basketball ball team. And at the time, they were the #1 basketball players. And Kathy and I were again in Vegas signing autographs for Star Trek. And we made arrangements to go surprise Bill Laimbeer with the head of the league. And so he didn't know we were coming. And we hadn't seen him since Land of the Lost. So it's all, 40 years, whatever it's been. And the women knew we were coming, and they had an 8x10 of a Sleestak, and they'd hidden it. So as we walked in, they pushed up the Sleestak. It had a Sleestak head on it. He's looking around like that. And Kathy and I come in and have a Sleestak head, and she has a puppet and stuff. And of course, we don't look like we used to. So it took him a while to really get what was going on. It's like,
right.
So the news was there, and ABC and all this stuff. We were filming everything. We did a press, and finally Bill goes, I got to go coach.
Yeah.
First of all, I like him a lot, by the way. I'm making fun of him. But the head of the league, after Bill left, he goes, I've known Lambert since he played college ball, and I have never seen him smile this much. So it was,
Oh, that's good. He took it well anyway, so that's
oh,
really
he took
good.
it. Yeah, he took it, and we took him some gifts and some signed autographs and stuff from the cast and things.
Right. Oh, excellent, excellent. Something I did, I had watched a few of the first season episodes recently, just refreshing my memory on it now because I hadn't seen it for a little while. And I noticed too something that was also unusual back then was you didn't get much continuity in a show. Somebody could fall and practically break their neck in one episode, and then the next week they're up and running like nothing ever happened. But I noticed that Chaka, who hurts his leg in the first one, he's still wearing the brace that they gave him in like the second or the third one. So I'm
Right.
like, well, they tried to preserve a little continuity in that. That was interesting. Attention to detail and character.
Again, it was David Gerald as the leader, and he wanted to write an adult sci-fi show that aired on Saturday morning, and it was those details that made it work so well. It was. I mean, we were a family with our mother had died, and it was a drama. This wasn't like a silly cartoon or something. This was about a family trying to survive together in a world with monsters and dangers and craziness. And it was the family bond and the fact that Kathy and Spencer and I loved each other so much. I think is what held the glue why it worked so well for so long. And it's streaming now, I think, on like 4 or 5 services. It's on like Cineverse and Tubi and Prime and all sorts of places. It's having a renaissance, and we've noticed that there's a lot younger kids now coming up that have just discovered it. Now, and of course, when you watch Land of the Lost, the special effects are, of course, the 70s. We didn't have CGI back then. So they look hokey compared, unless you find it charming, which I do. But
Definitely.
But again, the scripts hold up, and it's the science fiction that ties the whole thing together, and that's why we have such a longevity. Sid Krofft said the other day to me, he said, can you believe they still remember us 50 years later?
Oh yeah, it made a huge impression. Like I say, all the sci-fi trappings and everything. It was just fascinating to me.
Well, you also, from what you told me, you wrote 2 characters, your main characters from your book,
right,
based on brother and sister Will and Holly.
Yeah, the girl's name actually is Holly. So yeah, it was kind of funny. Like I was telling you, I was already well into the project before I realized, wait a minute, where did the inspiration for these 2 come from? So yeah, I know there's got to be other people out there. And I was reading something the other day that many who are working in Hollywood now and producing content have been inspired to some degree or another by watching Land of the Lost as kids. So
absolutely, it's the effect of Land of the Lost is huge. And not only in the entertainment business, and you're right, like Jurassic Park and all that stuff. A lot of those people were influenced by Land of the Lost, but it's also different archaeologists and scientists. For instance, Kathy and I were in Los Angeles, and we're sitting there, and this guy comes up and says, I thought you guys spoke Farsi. Oh, what? Farsi? He goes, yeah, my brother and I were from Persia, which I think it was Iraq. It's now Iran now. Mm-hmm. And he says, you were dubbed into Farsi when we were kids. And they moved to the States. And he said, I became a scientist because of Land of the Lost. And he and his brother were now 2 of the heads of JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab, in Pasadena. And I go, really? He goes, yeah. He said, would you guys like a private tour of JPL? I go, would we like a private tour? Yeah. I'm a science nerd and a space nerd. So I go to JPL, and we get to meet everybody. And there was one, it's very high security. To get through each door, you have to have a certain security level. The most secure level is this one room. And this is true. I swear this is true. They let us in, and imagine this big room with a whole bank of different computers all along all 3 walls, and one guy sitting in a corner over by himself with a light and a computer board and a monitor. And he looked at it and goes, Land of the Lost. And I go, yeah, how are you? And this is the guy that was driving the Mars rover on Mars.
Wow.
And he goes, you want to drive the Mars rover? I go, yes, I want to drive. And so Hit me
Oh
just off.
man.
So we
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
over to, and he had a driver's license, and it was the one and only driver's license from Mars. And
Oh, that's fine.
he had driven every rover up to that point,
Mhm.
and so we got to play with the monitor, looked at the monitor, and now to be honest, it didn't move the Mars rover, because what he did was he would program what he wants to happen on Mars the next day, and then he sends the signal at night. It took about 8 hours for it to reach Mars.
Right.
So whatever stupid stuff we did with playing with, whatever it was, he
Yeah.
erased it when we left. So otherwise, you would have heard that the Mars rover crashed that day, and it didn't. So it was those moments that just, it's amazing. We have so many people that truly are scientists and archaeologists that really will come up and say, I have a career because of you guys. I got interested in dinosaurs or, paleontology, whatever it was. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of writers, a lot of science fiction writers.
Oh yeah.
That were,
Yeah. I bet
kids,
that's got to feel good too. Yeah. That's got to
'cause,
feel good.
let's face it, we were all sitting in front of the TV with the bowl of Captain Crunch, on
Yeah.
our one and only special morning, Saturday morning,
Oh
for
yeah.
like 7 a.m. till 11.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember those days very well. And it's a recurring theme in so many shows like that. I mean, the cast of Star Trek has talked about that. In the past, James Doohan, who played Scotty on the original Star Trek, he talked about receiving letters from people who went into engineering because of him. DeForest Kelley, they went into becoming doctors because of him.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a lot of inspiration out there. And I
It's
remember
funny.
that too sometimes, to tell people when they say, what are you wasting all your hours in front of the tube for? That kind of stuff. Well, there's a lot of real world inspiration that comes out of that stuff.
Yep. And as an actor and stuff, you read a script, you do a script, you don't think of the impact of that script. You hope it works, but you never know what the ripple effect's going to be in later years of those words. And I think that's even, it happens in not just acting, but teachers. Teachers will say something to a student, like, you're terrific at this, and it will change the course of somebody's life. Our words have effect. And we had some amazing moments. I had one guy, he was in his 50s, and he came and he's crying, he's sobbing, and he's going, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be crying. I'm so sorry. He said, when I was a kid, he said, my dad was leaving us, getting a divorce from my mom. And he said, I couldn't handle it. I didn't know what to do. I was destroyed. So between the second and third season of Land of the Lost, we lost our dad, and our uncle came in because Spencer Milligan didn't sign the contract.
Mhm.
And he said, watching you survive, your family survive with your uncle, even though your dad was gone, gave me the strength to know that I was going to be okay. He said, I know it sounds hokey, but it saved me. And we have many, many stories like this. One young lady was from Compton. She said, our neighborhood was so dangerous back in the day. My mom wouldn't let us go play out on the weekends. So we'd watch Land of the Lost on Saturday morning and play Land of the Lost in the house, with caves were blankets and under the table and things like that. And, she got to be Holly and, whatever. But those stories go on, and they ripple, through. Yeah. So we get to, it's amazing, it's amazing because remember, you're kids, when you're, just like I said, watching the TV with the cereal, but it's a very vulnerable age, and those things are, and Land of the Lost was different because it wasn't silly. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't, it wasn't a dog talking out. Wah, wah, wah. It wasn't something this monster or puff and stuff or something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a lot of
touched
kids that get their first exposure to more advanced ideas and
yeah.
that sort of thing through shows like that, and how cooperation can benefit you. The Marshalls have to work together to survive. They have to trust each other and all that sort of thing. So they get some advanced concepts from some of that stuff.
Yeah, words are important. When I'm one of the co-creators of Dragon Tales on PBS, the animated series, which ran for about 10 years. And words are really important, the messages and how you frame things, because there is a ripple effect of, and it lasts long after we finished filming or doing whatever, it just lasts. And it has a longevity that most professions don't have, because
Right.
so.
Yeah, ideas stick in people's heads. They really do.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
All the questions that you get asked and all the conventions and everything that you do, I'm sure you hear a lot of the same things over and over again. Is there anything that you remember, anything you think fans would be interested in knowing that you don't get asked very much about that you might want to highlight on? You think people really ought to know this, but I never get asked this question.
Uh, we're so open about everything, Kathy and I and Phil, and until recently Spencer. But we're like an open book. We'll tell you anything. Because first of all, we had a great time. I mean, there's obviously some drama that happened behind the scenes, which one day maybe we'll talk about. But read Kathy's book. Kathy wrote a book called Run Holly Run, and it's on Amazon. And it won, when it came out, it won Best Indie Publication for Biography. So it's won 2 awards. But wow. She tells a little bit more about what happened, some of the areas, which I won't spoil because that's her book. But we all loved each other. I mean, we genuinely had the cast and crew were so close. It was fun. The closing party of Land of the Lost, Charo, Coochie Coochie Coo, is running through the jungle chasing Phil Paley shotgun, going Coochie Coochie Coo. I mean, it was. Stallone is on the set asking Kathy out on a date. I mean, it's crazy.
Was there ever any talk about a finale episode or anything like that? Ideas that they had in mind, or I don't know what kind of time constraints they ran into when they realized the show wouldn't be renewed anymore.
When it wasn't renewed, it wasn't renewed, so we didn't get to go back. There's been talk of David Gerald contacted me recently and just said that there's rumblings about a new version of Land of the Lost coming out, and it was supposed to happen, I think, before the writer's strike. But I haven't heard anything more. But there's, the Will Ferrell did the movie, which really wasn't Land of the Lost. Kathy and I did a cameo with Will, was terrible, got cut. And it was a comedy. Land of the Lost is a drama. It did, and it lost a gazillion it lost $200 million. Yeah. And so they and Sid and Marty Krofft have both apologized. We're sorry, we apologize. I think the more they apologize because they didn't make any money. But and Will could not have been sweeter, and Danny could not have been, and Anna Friel, and Will was a huge fan of Land of the Lost. I went on the set and met Will the first time. And, he comes running over and he goes, Wesley, I just sang the theme song to Land of the Lost yesterday, because he's playing the banjo and there's a bug that lands on him. It's one of the funniest parts of the movie. And he's singing because I sang the theme song in the original show. That's me singing the opening and closing theme songs.
Right.
And because Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition met the greatest high on the rapids and struck their tiny raft. And this giant bug bites him, and Will and Holly in this thing go, ah! So they kept the scream at him. And our show was going over the waterfall, and this one, it was a big bug bite him. So he was all proud, and Danny McBride. Yeah. I pretended to light a torch and pass the torch to Danny McBride as Will, and we all hope for a better result. But and the movie holds up if you don't associate it with Land of the Lost now, because time has passed.
Right.
It's funny and it's fun. So, but it's not Land of the Lost, but it's still a funny movie.
Right. Yeah, I might have to check that out at some point. I when I saw that it tanked so badly, I'm like, oh gosh, I have so many good memories of the original. Do I want to do this to myself?
Yeah. Don't. Yeah. Well, and Will and Marshall, Holly is not Marshall's daughter. It's his romantic partner and is his assistant.
Oh man!
So the opening of Grauman's Chinese, I haven't seen the movie. It's all the paparazzi. It's been Grauman's Chinese.
Yeah, that's a big change. Wow.
I'm sitting in the theater. It's packed with celebrities.
Yeah.
And the movie starts. It's like, okay, well, this is different. And of course, it's Holly's Anna Friel. She's from England, and she's an assistant to Will Ferrell. And but so it's Marshall and Holly. So I'm watching this thing, and there's a scene where they kiss. And I mean, I'm like into this thing, and it's quiet, and they kiss. And in the middle of Grauman's Chinese, I go, ah! It's great. I didn't mean to do it.
That's not right.
And everybody's looking at me, and I'm going, oh, okay. But it was just a knee-jerk reaction. I was so watching it and getting into the movie and stuff. And
Yeah. That would be hard to take. Yeah, I can imagine.
I know. Phil Paley and I were they had a huge party afterwards. And it was huge with ice sculptures and stations of food all over the place and liquor and sets and props. And Phil and I were standing in the back, Chaka, and we're looking around and he said, do you realize that this party cost more than all 3 seasons of Land of the Lost? The party alone. And I was right.
Yeah, the money involved in these productions is just astonishing sometimes, and all this stuff that surrounds it. So
I know, $200 million it lost.
Yeah.
$100 million in production, $100 million in PR.
yeah, that's incredible.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you too much longer. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on the program. Like I said, one of the people I've always wanted to talk to. Been watching you all my life. I was like literally, I don't know if I should tell you this or not. I was like a year old when Land of the Lost came.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I wasn't, by the way. I'm old. I'm very old.
How do people follow you? Keep up with where you're at, what you're doing nowadays? What's the best way to do that?
All the social media, but Wesley Eure, EURE.com. It has more information than you could ever want to know about all the other shows I did, you know, the game shows that I hosted and things like that. But and Facebook was, and we also have a big Land of the Lost TV series 1974-76 Facebook page, which is really active, lots of fans, and so you can find me at Instagram or Facebook or my website on .com, Wesley Eure.
Right, and you and Kathy have started a podcast of your own recently, don't you?
We did. It's called Wesley and Kathy's TV Talk on YouTube. So we're trying it. You know, we do podcasts like. Thank you for having me on, by the way, Robert. And we do this. And Kathy and I are going, well, why don't we just do our own? I mean, you know, and tell some stories. So we started doing that, and we're seeing how that works and how that goes.
Yeah, I've seen some of those now, and the one where you guys got stuck in the elevator not too long ago. I've been watching that one. Yeah,
that was so much fun that day. We were filming a TV show. Which one was it? It was Spenguli, or it was one of those horror shows. And oh my gosh, he's going to kill me, the host. I can't remember. And Sid Krofft has a podcast on Sundays with Sid. It's on Instagram. He's amazing for like 3 years now, every Sunday. So Sid said, I want you to be my live guest. And he's live at 3:00 his time in California. So we said, okay. So Kathy and I are at the hotel heading down the elevator with a father and his daughter. And it's the son and mother. And he's in his like 40s or something like that. And he recognizes us. And the elevator gets stuck. And we're supposed to go in 5 minutes live on Sid's show. Man. You know, it's a video thing too. So we're stuck. They're ringing the bell. It's really stuck. The elevator, we're getting messages. They're calling the fire department. They're going to come try to rescue you guys. But we're stuck in this hotel. And I call Sid. I'm on Instagram. I go, hi, Sid. I go, I hope you're okay, but we're stuck in an elevator and we're showing it around. We introduce it to the people that are captive with us, and we're on talking to Sid while the fire department's breaking through the elevator.
Oh, geez. At least the technology today, you can reach out to people. They don't know, what happened to them.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. Well, Wesley, thank you for coming on. Go ahead and let you go here. I appreciate the time talking to you and the memories you've shared, and I'm sure everybody else watching the video will really enjoy that.
Thanks, Robert. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.